Hello, my name is Abdulzahra, and this is my assignment 1 for mobile web application development. Starting with task 1, I went with a simple layout. Each button has an on-click listener set to it, and each of them update the top text view to say, well, the respective text view. If it's a top button, it would be top text view. If it's a bottom button, it would be the bottom text view, to say the name of the corresponding button. Then it also calls the reset method, which resets the text after 1,000 milliseconds, which is equivalent to 1 second. And then there's also one for the image, which once the image is pressed, it would give this text on text2, which is my title text. And after, this would reset the text using a handler in 3.5 seconds. And lastly, the counter. I used a nested static class to count the number of times that each button has been clicked. It's got a static method, which is this, and it returns the counter value. And each time the new button has been pressed, the text is updated with text view, which is this text view. Yep. And to show how all this works, when you press the image, the text changes here. Top left, and the counter goes up by 1. Top right goes up to 2. Bottom right, 3. Bottom left, 4. And each text view is set, the top text view is set closer to the top, and the bottom text view is set closer to the bottom. Moving on to my task 2. This is the hint button, as the idea was given. So I named it the information button. This button's function is to display this text, and it's using a boolean method. So it doesn't take up a lot of screen space, and it's also kind of an eyesore since I made the text red. And it uses a boolean method so you can turn the text on and off. So when it's first pressed, it would show this text, and pressed again, it would turn it off. Moving on to the next one. This just initializes the spinner, which I named Yum, declared it as Yum, to show this array on launch, which is Yao, which is just empty. So there's no options when you first launch the app. And below that, we have the radio group listener, which I initialized as RG. And this just updates the spinner's items depending on what was picked from the radio group. And it uses these arrays right here for legs, for pull, and for push. And this is the code for the submit button. After you've selected parts, you just press the submit button and it would print the text depending on what was selected. And if there was no input, it would give no input. This line of text actually saved me quite a bit because I was running into a lot of issues where my app would just crash if there were no options selected, and this helped fix it. Below that is the spinner item selection listener. It handles the item selection in the spinner, and then it goes display text, display exercise text, which is this right here, with the selected item so it can update the text. And finally, using a switch statement, I created these essentially routines depending on the muscle group that was picked, which would be shown on the EXA text view, which is this one here. It's one of the little ones. This one right here, the EXA. Yep. Now moving on to the app's functionality. As you can see on launch, there's an option. When you press submit, it just says no input. The information button works as intended as well. When you press it the first time, it shows the information. Second time, it turns it off. Or in each different button, get different inputs. Back and legs. If you want to submit chest, tell you to focus is push. And then the muscle is chest. If you want to show exercises, so it would show. And hide it. This works for each individual button. Hide exercises, pull, back. Now moving on to my task 3. This is the code for my recycler view to just set up the layout. So the size stays fixed and the scroll is horizontal, and also some information that I would include. Moving on to my viewholder class, which is located in my program adapter.java. And the next part of this is just an on-click listener. And when an item is pressed, it would launch into the detail activity detail, which would contain more information on what the user clicked on, essentially. And moving on to my program adapter, which constructs and accepts a context of arrays consisting of the following: context, string, images, the animal description. It inflates the layout for individual items and then also creates a new viewholder instance, and it passes the context and data arrays into it. And this method just binds the data to the views. And this last one returns the total number of items in the dataset, and this is determined by the length of the program list array. Then moving on to my last one, which is detailed activity, which is the main page where all the information will be shown. And then this part it's a get extras method, or get intent, and it just grabs this information from the previous lines of code. Sorry, the previous pages of code, depending on the input. And this information would be, this includes an image, a title, and a description. And the last thing here is the button, which just has this one line, which is a finish. Yep. And now moving on to the activity part, as you can see, it scrolls sideways. The title's also there, and when the information is pressed on, it shows the string array that I was talking about before. And this information is all accurate, and it's also been cited in my written assignment. So you can see when you press the back button, it takes you back to, and this works for each one individually. Now moving on to my task 4, which was quite a fun application to develop. Starting with the main activity. It's just 3 on-click listeners which call on these methods. So for validate credentials, it would be this one. And this works also with the attempts, which is also created here. Well, it's started here. The value is set to 3, and it counts down on every invalid attempt. And when that hits 0, it finishes the application. And this also validates the username and password after it describes it, or it gets the text from these 2 text views. And the chosen username and password I've chosen is Ali43. And moving on to the toggle password visibility, which would be this one right here, the show hide button. This button works by showing and hiding the text. And then the clear fields button, which is that there. So it's an on-click listener, and once it's pressed, it sets all the text views to null. Sorry, one more important component is this one right here, these few lines of text. This just counts how many, well, the length of the username and password, and if it's less than 4, it would give this error text. And then if it's not less than 4, this also constantly updates. If it's not less than 4, it will remove the error text. And yeah. Then after the correct username and password have been inputted through this right here, it pushes on and then the logout button, which is just used by an on-click listener, and then a simple finish method. And also the hint button, which is this one right here, the information button. This just tells the user about how the game works, which was an extra that I developed into this task as I didn't like how empty the page looked. And this game works, well, it's a very simple game. It just gives a random number from 0 to 50. And the user, depending on what the user guesses, it would give a different reply. So if it's too low, it will tell the user to keep trying and that it's too low. If it's too high, it will do the same thing, but tell the user that it's too high. And when they get it right, it will say, congratulations, you guessed right. And that's it for the code. This is what the application looks like on launch. For example, you enter 3 characters, it would give you an error. When you enter 4, the error goes away. This works, and you log in. It won't work. The countdown would work. Sorry, the countdown would begin. When it hits 0, the app closes. If you type the correct username and password in, well, clears the fields. 43, show and hide, the login. It shows the information for the app, and this also hides it. This one tells you that it's too low, too high, and then also the congratulations text, once you guess correctly. Scenario is 39, and the logout button, which returns you to this page. And my final task, which is the calculator. This is the one for the equals button. And for the dot, this is the line that only lets you add a dot if there's no other dots in that specific number. And then the switch statements for the plus, for the operations. And then the code for the clear button, which just gets rid of all the information that's on the calculator. These lines, well, this line makes sure the string isn't empty. And if these conditions are met, it would continue to push, well, whatever is selected. For example, if 5 was selected and plus was selected, it would say 5 plus. Then the method continues by appending the current number to the display text. I decided to use switch statements for the operands because I found them to be more familiar and convenient. And yeah, back to the top. These 3 lines essentially prepare the calculator for the next calculation. So it uses the result and then the operation sets to null, which then can be selected. And this displays the result, performs the calculation. Yeah, that was all done in the wrong order, but that's because it's how I constructed it. And yeah, moving on to the actual application. You can see that 9 divided by 9 works, gives us 1. And plus 9 gives us 18. 9 minus 9 gives us 0. Should I give you a better example for that? 9 minus 10 minus 1. 9 times 9, 81. Then we do 9 plus 6 equals 15 divided by 9. 1.666. Yeah. 3 times 3 plus 9 6 times 2 divided by 3. Yeah. This has been my video component for my A1 assignment. Thank you for taking the time to review this. I hope you have a great day.